In a world overflowing with oversharing and constant connectivity, the power of discernment has never been more vital. Knowing what to share and what to hold back isn't about secrecy. It's about self-respect, wisdom, and control. It's the quiet confidence of understanding that not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, plans, or emotions. This speech is about reclaiming your power through intentional communication. It's about mastering the art of silence, drawing boundaries, and recognizing that privacy is not weakness, it's strength. When you learn to guard your energy and choose your words wisely, you become both respected and unshakable. We live in a time where everything feels urgent. Where sharing every thought, every update, every emotion is almost expected. But here's a truth most people miss. Just because you can share something doesn't mean you should. Great leaders, impactful people, strong individuals, they don't speak to be heard. They speak to connect. And they know the difference between openness and vulnerability and oversharing and recklessness. When you understand what to share and what to hold back, you gain clarity. You're not hiding who you are, you're protecting the most sacred parts of yourself. Because trust is built in layers, not all at once. You reveal based on character, not convenience. Not everyone has earned access to your private thoughts, your long-term goals, or your wounds. And here's the irony. People who overshare often seek connection, but they end up pushing others away. Because trust isn't built through volume. It's built through consistency, presence, selective honesty. Discernment builds respect because it demonstrates self-awareness, maturity, and emotional intelligence. In a world where people often speak impulsively or overshare in an attempt to connect, the person who exercises restraint stands out. Discernment isn't about being secretive or withholding information out of fear. It's about understanding the value of timing, intention, and audience. When someone knows when to speak, what to share, and what to hold back, they signal strength and stability. It shows they are not easily swayed by emotion or pressure, but grounded in purpose and awareness. Respect is rarely given to those who speak without thinking. We respect those who demonstrate that they have clarity, not just in what they know, but in how they express it. Discernment reveals this clarity. When a person chooses to speak with intention, people listen more attentively because they know that what's being said is deliberate. That kind of presence is magnetic. It conveys control and credibility, making others feel safe, understood, and led by someone who is not just reacting, but responding with depth. Every word we speak either strengthens or weakens our credibility. When someone reveals too much too soon, whether it's their pain, their plans, or their opinions, it can create discomfort or mistrust. But when someone shares thoughtfully, they build a slow and steady foundation for trust. Discernment allows you to protect your dignity while still being authentic. It's not about being distant or emotionally closed off. It's about not placing your entire self in the hands of people who haven't earned it. That balance naturally earns admiration because it reflects self-respect. In relationships, both personal and professional, people are drawn to those who carry themselves with emotional discipline. The ability to listen more than you speak, to think before you act, to pause before reacting. These are marks of someone who can be trusted with responsibility and intimacy. Discernment is the skill behind those qualities. It guides you to know what battles to engage in, what truths to reveal, and what emotions to express. And that awareness communicates to others that you are someone who leads with thoughtfulness, not impulsiveness. Furthermore, discernment cultivates a sense of mystery and gravity. People tend to admire those who are not constantly explaining themselves or justifying every move. The individual who can remain silent in chaos, who doesn't rush to defend or overshare, commands attention in a different way. Their presence carries weight. Others begin to watch more closely, listen more deep, and take them more seriously. This isn't manipulation. It's respect earned through mindful expression. Ultimately, when you develop the ability to hold back when needed, to share wisely, and to communicate intentionally, you become someone whose words matter. People don't just hear you. They feel the weight behind your words. And in that feeling, respect is born, not demanded, but quietly earned. In today's hyper-connected world, the urge to be seen, liked, and validated can easily override the deeper human need for meaningful connection. Social media platforms encourage us to broadcast our lives, seek instant feedback, and measure our worth by numbers, likes, followers, comments. Hey, comments. But attention is not the same, as connection is fleeting, surface level, and often performative. Connection, on the other hand, is rooted in authenticity, trust, and depth. It takes time to build and cannot be forced or faked. When a person seeks attention, their communication becomes a performance. They say what they think others want to hear. They share for reaction, not for real engagement. The focus shifts from what do I truly want to express to what will get the most views? Most. Over time, this creates a hollow feeling. Even if the attention comes, it doesn't satisfy. It feels shallow because it is. There's no depth, no real understanding, no true bond formed. The more someone chases attention, the more disconnected they become from their own values and from the people around them. Connection requires a different mindset. It demands presence, vulnerability, and the courage to be real even when it's not popular. It's about listening as much as speaking, about understanding more than impressing. When someone focuses on connecting instead of performing, their energy shifts. They communicate with intention. They speak from experience, not ego. They share parts of themselves that are honest, not polished. Not polished. And in doing so, they create space for others to do the same. There is a quiet strength in someone who doesn't need to be the loudest in the room, who doesn't share everything for applause. This person listens carefully, responds thoughtfully, and values depth over drama. Their relationships tend to be more genuine, more resilient, and more fulfilling because they're built on trust rather than transaction. The people around them feel seen, not just entertained. That's the essence of true connection. It goes both ways. It's not about broadcasting. It's about relating. Choosing connection over attention also leads to more personal peace. When someone is no longer addicted to approval, they stop outsourcing their self-worth. They begin to live from a place of internal validation. Their words and actions align with their values, not trends. Not trends. They become consistent, grounded, and clear. Others naturally gravitate toward them because authenticity is magnetic in a world of filters and facades. Connection creates impact that lasts. Attention may give you a moment, but connection builds a legacy. People remember how you made them feel, not how many likes you had. They remember sincerity, empathy, and trust. So while attention shouts, connection speaks. And it speaks to the part of us all that longs not to be seen by many, but to be known deeply by a few. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges to healthier relationships, personal peace, and self-respect. The ability to set and maintain boundaries is a reflection of emotional maturity. It means you've grown enough to understand your limits, your needs, and your values, and you're willing to honor them even when it's uncomfortable. People often misunderstand boundaries as cold, selfish, or rigid. But, in truth, they are one of the most compassionate things you can do for both yourself and others. Because when you know where you stand, others know how to engage with you respectfully. Maturity is shown when you no longer feel the need to please everyone. When you can say no without guilt, and yes without resentment. That shift doesn't come from pride, but from experience. You begin to realize that constantly giving in, overextending, or staying silent for the sake of harmony doesn't build real connection. It builds quiet resentment. And with time, that resentment erodes trust, both in others and in yourself. Boundaries are a signal that you trust yourself enough to protect your peace and that you respect others enough to be clear and honest. Emotionally mature people don't avoid difficult conversations. They face them with kindness and clarity. They don't ghost, explode, or manipulate. Instead, they communicate their boundaries calmly and consistently. They understand that it's not their job to manage everyone's feelings, but it is their responsibility to manage their own. They choose to live with intention, not obligation. They recognize that saying yes to everything is often saying no to themselves. Boundaries are not about controlling others, they're about managing your own behavior. You can't force someone to respect your boundaries, but you can choose the consequences when they don't. That choice, responding instead of reacting, is the essence of maturity. It's knowing when to walk away, when to stay silent, and when to speak up. It's being in tune with your emotional, mental, and physical energy, and protecting it like it matters, because it does. It does. Setting boundaries also deepens trust in relationships. When you're clear about what you can and cannot accept, it gives others permission to do the same. It creates an environment where honesty and respect are valued more than compliance or performance. Boundaries aren't the end of love or connection. They are the beginning of real, lasting ones. They help filter out people who only love your compliance and attract those who value your truth. When you stop explaining your boundaries and start embodying them, everything changes. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop apologizing for needing space, rest, or clarity. You start showing up for yourself in a way that inspires others to do the same. And that's not selfish, that's wisdom. It's a sign you've learned what many don't, that your peace is your responsibility, and your boundaries are how you protect it. Acting with intent rather than impulse is a defining trait of those who lead with purpose. It reflects clarity, thoughtfulness, and emotional discipline. Impulse is reactive. It's driven by emotion, ego, and the desire for immediate relief or gratification. Intent, on the other hand, is proactive. It's guided by values, goals, and the bigger picture. When you move from impulse to intent, you stop living on autopilot and start making choices that align with who you truly are. Impulse often comes from a place of insecurity or fear. It makes people speak before thinking, commit before they're ready, or quit when things get hard. It thrives on temporary emotions and leads to long-term consequences. One moment of impulsiveness can damage relationships, reputations, or opportunities. It's the quick text you regret, the overreaction that causes harm, the promise made out of pressure. While impulse may feel powerful in the moment, it often leaves behind confusion, regret, or instability. Intent, however, requires a pause. It's the brief moment of reflection before a decision, the deep breath before a response. It's not about being slow or hesitant. It's about being deliberate. People who act with intent think through the impact of their actions. They ask, is this helpful? Is this aligned with what I want? Will this matter tomorrow? That pause is where wisdom is found. It's where emotional intelligence takes over and impulsive patterns are replaced with purposeful action. When you live with intent, you communicate more clearly. You don't just speak to be heard, you speak to be understood. You don't make choices to impress others, you make them to honor yourself. Intent allows you to act in alignment with your principles, even when it's uncomfortable. It helps you resist distractions and emotional traps because your actions are anchored in something deeper than just the moment. In relationships, intent fosters trust. When others see that you're not easily swayed by emotion or external pressure, they begin to rely on your consistency. You become the kind of person who doesn't just react, but responds with meaning. That consistency builds respect, and that respect strengthens connection. Intent signals maturity, showing that you've done the internal work to lead yourself before trying to lead others. Intent also brings clarity to your goals. Instead of chasing every opportunity, you pursue what actually serves your vision. You stop wasting energy on meaningless distractions. Your time, focus, and energy are spent with purpose. You begin to move differently. Not faster, but smarter. Not louder, but with more depth. And because you're acting with intention, your progress feels more fulfilling, not just busy. Every choice becomes a reflection of who you are becoming, not who you're trying to please or avoid. You're no longer driven by fleeting emotions, but by grounded values. And that shift, from reacting to responding, from impulse to intention, transforms not only how you move through the world, but also how the world responds to you. Silence is often misunderstood. In a world where noise is constant and everyone is encouraged to voice every thought, silence can be mistaken for weakness or indifference. But silence, when used with intention, is one of the most powerful tools a person can possess. It represents self-control, emotional intelligence, and inner strength. It allows space for clarity, observation, and deeper understanding. While others rush to speak, to argue, to prove their point, a person who chooses silence stands out. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they know not everything needs to be said. There's a quiet confidence in choosing not to react immediately. Silence isn't about avoidance, it's about strategy. When emotions run high, reacting impulsively with words can escalate situations unnecessarily. But silence gives room for reflection. It creates a pause where wisdom can enter. It allows you to observe not only what's being said, but how it's being said. You gain insight into the emotions, intentions, and mindset of others. which gives you the upper hand in understanding and responding effectively. People who are grounded and self-assured don't need to fill every silence with explanations, defenses, or opinions. They understand that not every challenge deserves a response, and not every comment requires a comeback. They don't argue to prove they're right. They stay silent to remain in control. Their restraint becomes a signal of maturity and emotional mastery. In difficult conversations, this kind of silence commands attention and respect, because it shows that they aren't controlled by ego or the need for validation. Silence also builds presence. When someone who is usually composed and quiet decides to speak, their words carry more weight. People listen because they know the words are measured and meaningful. That kind of presence is earned through discipline. It's the result of someone who has trained themselves not to react to every trigger, not to speak from emotion alone, and not to waste their voice on people or situations that don't deserve it. In relationships, silence can communicate boundaries. It can signal that disrespect won't be tolerated, that you're choosing peace over chaos. Sometimes silence says more than any argument ever could. It communicates that you've outgrown the need to engage in petty conflict. You're not withholding your voice. You're protecting your energy. Silence can also be an act of self-preservation. In moments of disappointment, betrayal, or emotional overload, it gives you time to process, to gather your thoughts, and to decide what actually needs to be expressed and what's better left unspoken. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're powerless. It means you've realized where your true power lies, in restraint, in observation, in self-respect. It's the strength to walk away, the wisdom to wait, and the discipline to let your peace speak louder than your words. Trust is not something that can be demanded, rushed, or faked. It is earned slowly through consistent behavior, honesty, and presence over time. It begins with small moments, subtle choices, and everyday actions that reveal who a person truly is. Trust is built in layers, not leaps. It's developed when words align with actions, when promises are kept, and when someone shows up the same way in both calm and chaos. So, the process may be slow, but that's what makes it real. In a world where instant gratification is everywhere, the slow nature of building trust can feel frustrating. People often expect loyalty before they've proven reliability, or openness before they've demonstrated safety. But true connection requires time and patience. Trust grows when someone sees your vulnerability and doesn't exploit it. It strengthens when you say a no and your boundary is respected, not challenged. It becomes solid when hard truths are spoken with kindness instead of judgment. Consistency is the foundation of trust. A single act of honesty doesn't guarantee trust any more than a single workout guarantees health. It's the repetition of truthfulness, empathy, and reliability that forms the backbone of a trustworthy relationship. People pay attention to how you handle disappointment, how you talk about others when they're not around, how you treat those who can do nothing for you. Trust is earned in those small, often unnoticed moments. Trust is also about emotional safety. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about being someone others can be real with without fear of ridicule, betrayal, or rejection. When someone feels safe to speak their truth, to be vulnerable, or to disagree without punishment, that's when real trust begins to bloom. It's delicate and easily damaged. One lie, one moment of betrayal, can set the process back months or even years. That's why it must be guarded with intention and care. Earning trust requires emotional maturity. It means taking responsibility for mistakes, owning up when you're wrong, and making changes rather than empty apologies. It means being present, even when it's inconvenient, and listening without the intent to reply, but to understand. Trust grows in the quiet, steady moments, not in grand gestures, but in dependable, thoughtful behavior. In healthy relationships, both personal and professional, trust is not a one-time achievement. It's a living process that requires ongoing nurturing. It evolves with time, deepens with shared experiences, and is tested through challenges. But once trust is established, it becomes the bedrock of everything meaningful. Communication flows more freely, conflict is resolved with less damage, and connection becomes stronger and more resilient. Those who understand that trust must be earned, and who are willing to do the work consistently, create relationships that last. They don't manipulate it or force it. They let it grow with patience and integrity, knowing that real trust is one of the most valuable currencies in life. Okay? So, as you move through life and relationships, remember this: trust is not built in a moment that repeat. It's not about saying the right thing once, but about showing up again and again with honesty, consistency, and care. Let your actions speak so clearly that your words become confirmation, not persuasion. Be the kind of person who earns trust not through promises, but through presence. Because in a world full of noise and uncertainty, the most powerful thing you can be is reliable. And that, above all, is how trust truly takes root and lasts. In the end, trust isn't something you ask for, it's something you prove day by day, moment by moment. It's not built through grand declarations, but through quiet consistency. When your actions align with your values, when your presence is steady, and your words are backed by truth, trust begins to take root. Be patient with the process. Let people experience your reliability. Not just hear about it. Because real trust doesn't demand attention, it earns respect. And once trust is built, it becomes the foundation for deeper connection, stronger relationships, and a life led with authenticity, clarity, and quiet strength.